I'll tell you, last night for Angels fans, can you imagine? I think Jeff Fletcher sent out the
Baseball
initial
fans,
tweet.
dude.
Baseball fans, Angels fans, but Trout and Ohtani,
Yeah.
same day from the Angels. The Ohtani UCL news, and what does that mean for him moving forward? But you're right, baseball fans, 100%. Jeff Fletcher covers the Angels, beat writer, SoCal News Group. He wrote about Shohei Ohtani, the author of Showtime, the inside story of Shohei Ohtani and the greatest baseball season ever played. He's back with us here on San Diego Sports 760. Jeff, we really appreciate it. I guess the question starts with this because we talk about it locally in San Diego. Like, should they bring back Joe Musgrove? They're 6 games out. Why was Shohei Ohtani pitching? He had arm fatigue. They're now, 10.5 games out? What was the reasoning? It wasn't from the player himself, but why was Shohei Ohtani still out there in late August?
Well, I mean, first of all, Ohtani never said he had any pain or anything like that. There was nothing to suggest an injury other than fatigue. And he said he was okay to pitch. And he had skipped his previous start because he said he needed a break. So that sort of gave them an indication that he was being honest with them and realistic with them, and he wasn't, just blindly pushing himself. So when he said he was not okay to pitch, he didn't pitch. And then the next week he said he was, and he did. So that's basically it.
For you, Jeff, do you expect him to pitch again? I mean, it seems like he's going to get this surgery, obviously, but do you expect him to ever pitch again?
Yeah, I think he will. I mean, there's obviously, it's a little tougher to have a second Tommy John surgery, but it's not unprecedented. There's a lot of guys out there who've done it, and Ohtani is definitely committed to being a two-way player. I think he's certainly going to try. It's not 100% that he's going to make it because, even if he comes back and he's just not as good, that kind of might push a team, whatever team he's playing for, to say, all right, you're not as good a pitcher as you were. Let's just focus on hitting and we can have some other guys pitch. So, I mean, that could happen, but I definitely think he's gonna make an attempt, and he will pitch again in the majors.
Jeff Fletcher covers the Angels. He's with us right now on John and Jim. Now, he's going to be fine financially. I mean, he's still going to make a lot of money, whatever the number ultimately is. With all that being said, what is the impact here? I mean, in your estimation, if he got to free agency fully healthy as a two-way player, but now he's got this UCL tear, what do you foresee the impact to be on him in free agency financially?
I mean, it's hard to say, but it's obviously going to be less. I mean, he's obviously going to get less money than people thought he was going to get yesterday.
Yeah.
How much less, we don't know, but I think that any team is going to have to view him just as a hitter. And if he comes back and pitches, then that's a bonus. Whatever contract he could sign might have a bunch of, extra clauses in it. If he pitches X number of innings, he gets X extra dollars, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe options that are triggered, that kind of thing. So it's not going to be, I don't think, a simple this amount of years for this amount of dollars period. It's going to be really fascinating to see how people value him, though, because it's not just that he's only a hitter, but as of now, he's only a DH. So you really don't see very many guys like that at all. And there is value for playing defense. So, I think if Ohtani ends up not pitching at some point, he is probably going to take up a position somewhere because I don't think he would want to just DH all the time. So all of that is going to go into the calculation, and it's just going to be really fascinating to see what happens.
And, from the Angels standpoint here, I know this is kind of a weird question, but do you think it might help the Angels with this situation going on to retain Ohtani? Because if he was fully healthy, you're looking at a contract that's, astronomical. It's a historic contract. But now, like you said, he's just going to be a DH. This is going to obviously affect his free agency. Is there anything here with the Angels standpoint, like the possibility of re-signing him? Is that a possibility now because he's not going to cost as much money?
I don't actually think the money was ever really a hindrance for the Angels.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that Ohtani is not really in this just to get the most money. He was going to go wherever he wanted to be, where he was going to be the most comfortable and have the best chance to win. And whatever team that was going to be was going to pay him all the money he needed. It would have been the Angels or Dodgers or Giants, whatever. So the fact that he's a little cheaper now, I don't think makes a difference. But I do think the fact that he could now be going through a rehab process which involves a lot of, variables, how are they going to treat him and, what's going to be the expectation and et cetera, et cetera. And all that stuff just adds another layer of unknown. And if you're walking into a brand new team going through that, that might be a little more daunting than doing it with the Angels, where you already know how everything works. You've already gone through this before. So I do think just in that sense that there is a chance that it makes it a little more likely that he would come back to the Angels.
Jeff Fletcher with us right now. He covers the Angels beat with us on John and Jim. Is the only way to recover from this a tear, to have it repaired surgically, or is there a way for this to potentially, quote unquote, heal?
Well, there are a few other options. There's, platelet-rich plasma injections, stem cell injections. He tried that before in 2018 when he had the first tear. It didn't really work. Pitchers try it a lot, and it almost never works. Masahiro Tanaka is really the only pitcher who's a prominent pitcher who had a tear who didn't have to have the surgery. There is sort of an in-between surgery. It's called a brace surgery, in which they don't really do like a transplant of a ligament from somewhere else in your body. They just sort of jury rig some tape actually into your ligament. And if you have that, then the recovery is only like 6 to 9 months. But that's mostly with younger pitchers, like high school kids. And there's really very little track record or history of that working, with a major league pitcher. But most likely, if he's gonna have to get it repaired, and that would be, Tommy John revision surgery is what they call it, and that's 12 to 15, 16, 17 months, something like that.
Jeff, if he expects to pitch again, is there a possibility that maybe he becomes a closer down the road instead of remaining a starter?
So many people suggest that, but I just don't understand how that would even work if you're in the lineup as a DH.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if you're batting in the top of the ninth,
right,
and you're standing at second base, and then you're supposed to go pitch?
Really weird.
When are you going to warm up?
Yeah.
It's just, sure, he did it in the WBC. I think that was a one-time thing. It was a very special event, and it sort of worked out perfectly with where he was in the lineup. But I just don't know that you could do that regularly. And I'm also not convinced that it's even better health-wise, because when you're a starter, you have a very predictable workload. You're going to throw this many pitches on this day. You're not going to be asked to throw 4 out of 5 days or 2 out of 3 days, or throw 30 pitches one day and come back and throw 15 the next day. All these other weird things that come into being a reliever. I think usually relievers get to be relievers not because of their health, but because they just don't have enough pitches. They might only have 2 good pitches instead of 3.
Right.
That's obviously not a problem for Ohtani. So I think if he's going to pitch, he's going to be a starter.
Jeff, before you go, I have one more. Just about, I think he has said before, he's expressed a desire to win, right? I mean, he's going to make money, like you said. He can pick his landing spot. Is it ultimately going to come down to doing something that he hasn't yet done, which is get to the postseason and put himself in a position where he can ultimately get there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's a very important thing for him. He wants to win. I think every player wants to win. So the question is, how much does he weigh that versus how much does he weigh, the comfort of his environment, how he's going to be used, how the people are going to treat him, what the media environment's like, what the fans are like, what the geography is like, all those other things kind of go into a different bucket. So, I don't know if the winning part is 70% and the other part's 30%, or if it's 50-50 or what, but definitely winning counts. And I think all that other stuff also counts, and only he really knows how he weighs it.
Jeff, we always appreciate it. Have enjoyed your coverage, specifically of the story. And again, for our listeners, he wrote Showtime, the inside story of Shohei Ohtani and the greatest baseball season ever played. Really, really a shame for it to potentially end his time on the mound with the Angels. We'll see if that is the case or not. Will he be back in 2024? And when's the next time we see him on a mound? Jeff, we appreciate it. Thanks for doing it in San Diego.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. Thanks for having me.